ayes have it. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Vicky Ford.
Employment Equality Insurance, etc. Bill, second reading.
I call Natalie Elphicke.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I beg to move that the bill be now read a second time. Mr Deputy Speaker, in this place, our nation's Parliament, change comes to this place in many forms. Sometimes it's the clamour of the picket line or the lobby group and members' own interests, but sometimes it comes in the shape of an MP's constituency surgery and the quiet working man. A man who knows what is right and what is wrong, who seizes injustice and that internal fury and propels it to this place to be remedied. Not for himself. He knows the barriers that he faces. He fights for every man, every woman, every one of us, as we face the cruel certainty of age and age discrimination in the workplace. The man is Stephen Horn. I am proud he is my constituent, and I'm proud to today be able to speak to Stephen's bill. I stand with him in relation to tackling age discrimination in our society, which is endemic. And this particular provision that the bill is aiming to address is very much at the heart of the nation's challenge.
I'm very grateful for my honourable friend for giving way, and I'm absolutely supportive of her bill, as she knows. Does she agree with me that whilst we have other protected characteristics that are generally adhered to in employment law, gender, race or religion, age discrimination is the biggest issue that we need to tackle, and it's pervasive, and her bill is tackling this in a small way but is really important.
My honourable friend is exactly right. It is absolutely pervasive in our society. It is such a common experience. 1 in 3 people report that they experience age discrimination, and we must tackle this injustice. And this bill is to repeal paragraph 14 of Schedule 9 to the Equality Act, because that is a provision that allows workplace benefits to be removed from a working person solely by reason of them coming to their statutory pensionable age. Mr Deputy Speaker, I was pleased to bring in a 10-minute rule bill last year in relation to this topic, and I'm pleased to bring it back today with such strong support that I've had from across the House, from so many members who, like me, believe that we need to tackle this issue urgently. Because it is the case that people in their 50s and 60s commonly experience discrimination. And that discrimination is because of age. And that has been reported by the Centre for Ageing Better at around 37% of people who are in work. 1 in 5 employers believe that age discrimination occurs in their organisation, and many argue that ageism is a key barrier for people who are 50 to 64 who want to return or remain in their workplaces. But what we have in this provision is something that really is quite extraordinary, because it allows active discrimination under the law. And by allowing active discrimination, it of course opens the door to other forms of indirect and unconscious bias discrimination too. And this was well explored by the Committee of Women and Equalities, where they said it's clear that prejudice, unconscious bias and casual ageism in the workplace are happening, and that there's an inadequate challenge to current practices. So looking into Stephen's case, the situation is this. Stephen is a train driver with Eurotunnel. He helped to build the tunnel when it first opened 30 years ago, and he has driven a train since the very first trains went through the tunnel. When he reached the age of 66, his bosses decided to remove his workplace benefits for income protection, long-term sickness, his health insurance, and this puts him at a disadvantage to his other workers. Stephen is doing the same job at 66 as he did at 65, but now he doesn't get the same money's worth or the same terms and conditions in relation to his contract of employment. In simple terms, Stephen does not get equal pay and conditions to a younger worker solely by reason of his age. That is not right. If Stephen falls ill, he cannot get the same access to speedy private health care that other people in his company can now get, which means he might be out of the workplace for longer. That includes in relation to a workplace injury. And if, heaven forbid, he died, his wife, Marcia, would no longer have the compensatory insurance through death in service benefits that another worker's family would be entitled to. And yet he is doing exactly the same job now as he was before he reached retirement age. And looking into Stephen's case, I was shocked to discover that this type of age discrimination is legal. The Equalities Act is supposed to provide protection for older people against age discrimination. It is, as my honourable friend has rightly said, a protected characteristic, and it needs to be treated as such. But this exception within the Act, it does mean that there is discrimination faced not just by Stephen, but by workers up and down the land who face similar terms and conditions. And we need to tackle this issue because people are staying in the workplace longer. We should, of course, tackle it because it is unfair and it is wrong. It needs to be tackled here in this place by changing the law, because I have had discussions with companies about why they don't just do the right thing. Why don't they change this unfair practice? Why don't they look after all of their workers better? And the answer that I've had is simple, that they won't do it until we say that they must, here in this Parliament. And they won't do it because they don't want to have to pay more for these terms and conditions than they do at the moment. And the bottom line is, they don't want older workers like Stephen. And that is not right, and it's not something in our country that we can afford either, because people are working much later, much older than they were before. And as the government has changed the pensionable age, that has become more acute. So Stephen's bill seeks to put the situation right for every older worker in the country by changing the law on workplace benefits so that older people are treated on the same basis as any other part of their employment relationship. Now, we know why this matters, because there was a time when a pregnant woman had to quit her job and leave the workplace. Indeed, there was a time when women were not welcome in many workplaces. There was a time when women were not given paid maternity leave, when men were not given paid paternity leave, when women would not get jobs if they were of childbearing age, and we have addressed that through Parliament over decades. Now we know that employers find that retaining women in the workplace, indeed having them at the very top levels around the boardroom, benefits not just mothers, but the businesses themselves. They've been able to retain the vital skills and knowledge and commitment of female workers, and that is what needs to happen in relation to older workers too. Because in the same way, older workers, they have skills and knowledge gained over many years in the workplace. Treating older workers fairly will encourage them to stay, and it will also benefit the companies that they work for too. Now, I remember a time when employers used to say a woman didn't need to work, didn't need to get the same bonuses as a man, didn't need to be offered overtime because the men needed it to feed their families. Now, we've outlawed that because equal pay at work matters and equal opportunity at work matters too. And that applies every bit as much as whether it is a younger or an older worker who is doing the same job. Another excuse that's been given is that covering older people becomes more expensive for everyone because the premium for the company goes up. This is, of course, an absurd excuse. Applying that logic, would it be okay to say that we exclude from employment benefits people who've had a heart condition, cancer, bad back, disability or chronic condition on the basis that the insurance might go up? Of course not, and it wouldn't be lawful. And it should not be lawful that this can happen in relation simply to age. So we have said in other cases that it is discriminatory and wrong. and it is discriminatory and wrong to take someone's work benefits away simply because they have got older. That is something, Mr. Deputy Speaker, which none of us can influence or affect. It will happen to us all. And it happens even within this place, and we've heard recently even in government itself, that the treatment of people in their terms and conditions and even severance pay is different according to the age at which they take their role or responsibility. It is time for us to amend this great injustice. As I have said, Stephen knows that the challenge for him to change the minds of his bosses is an enormous one, and there's no indication that they are prepared to do so for his case. But I do know from speaking to businesses that there are things that government can do, as well as changing the law, to make sure that this particular injustice is addressed. And those can include making sure that there are compensatory payments to make equivalent on an equal pay basis for people who do not currently have access to these pay and conditions. It means making sure that it is unlawful for those offering the insurance to actually make this kind of discriminatory condition, which should be done. This is such an important time for our nation as we look for everyone to contribute and require people to work in older life. It's essential that we put in place the right laws and protection and framework so that whatever people want to do in their older age, they can make sure that they are treated fairly and equally. That is the reason that Stephen has asked me to...
Order. Second reading, what day?
Second reading on the 15th of March, please. 15th of March.
5th of March.
15th of March.
Thank you very much.
Secure 16 to 19 Academies Bill, second reading.
We're in charge now.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Whistleblowing Bill, second reading.